Okay, we are live. Hi, everybody again. So my name is Martin. I'm talking about unit test your business object in RAP. So I'm German, so I speak German, but to make the audience better, greater, so I switched to English for my presentation. So my first question to you is, what do you see here? What is your first association with this blue dot? Just your first thought.
The world,
The world,
100%.
100%.
Martin Lutz Consulting.
Martin Sohn Consultant. Yeah, that's nice. Blue, my color. Yeah. Another one?
Not the dog.
Not a dot. Okay. That's three different opinions, three different thoughts. So it's just a blue dot. But what does it have in common with software engineering? What can we learn from it? We switch to software. It's one thing, different perceptions. And in software engineering, we have one thing, maybe different solutions. So that is our first concept we learned today. It's the power of three. Do you already know it? So if you are working on any solution, not maybe the first thought is the best, maybe it's the third one. So if you are coding some implementations, then make it maybe in pair programming and search for different opinions. 3 opinions, take the best out of it and implement it. Or if you are designing your software, not design it once, design it 3 times and pick the best solution out of it and make it in a team. Power of 3. We come back to it later. So my name is Martin John. I'm working as a software consultant and software engineer or developer since over 14 years, freelance in the Swiss market. I'm also working as SAP Clean Code certified with individuals and companies. And I collaborate with Christian Drum and Damian Meyer under the flag of ASE coaching. So if you are interested in our programs, then you can have a look on our webpage. I'm also an author. I published a TDD course with Espresso tutorials. Thank you for this. So if you're interested in TDD, then maybe you can have a look in the course. And recently I founded a hub, a Clean Coder hub, to bring like-minded people together who are interested in clean code. My hobbies are community, family and friends. I do a lot of running. If I'm not stuck in front of my PC and I have left energy in the evenings, then I go for a run. And I do also yoga to calm my mind and to get focused. So today's topic is here, unit test your business object in RAP. Who of you is using unit tests in daily business? Oh, quite a lot. Who is doing TDD? Wow, 1, 2, 3. Nice, that's cool. So you already maybe have an idea where we are going. So at the end of this presentation, you understood the unit test framework in ABAP OO, hopefully. You are knowing, or you know how to write unit tests in a TAD style, test after development. We are not doing TDD today. We are doing TAD, test after development. You know how to mock entity accesses. That's very important in the RAP framework to mock our data. And you learn another clean code principle, which you can maybe adapt to your daily work. How do you get there? So we are using a solution from Christian Drum from his course ABAP Steampunk, published in Espresso tutorials as well. So we are creating test cases with our TAD style. And we are mocking the entity access with SAP standard classes. What is this not about? It's not a TDD presentation. But we are using the TDD cycle adapted to our approach here. Cool, cool. We are not mocking business objects itself. We are not mocking examples with update or delete operations. And it's not a RUB or OO beginners workshop. So you need some basic knowledge of RUB and OO programming. But yeah, it's upcoming. I'm working on it. I will publish a GitHub repository, and I come back to it later to ask you maybe help me to work on the examples. So let's dive into it. Our setup is our ABAP Steampunk course. So it's published with Espresso Tutorials. Thanks, Christian, for letting me working with your GitHub repository. Christian created a GitHub repository which you can clone in your SAP system, but I highly recommend to use a cloud-based one. The ABAP environment maybe is a good choice, and then we can get started. So we do not have to implement the examples. We can start with a repo. So in this repo, we have a showcase. We have a web application. On the left side in the column, you see a product ID. Then the second column is a product description and the average rating. So we have a product, and for each product, we have maybe 1 or n ratings stored in the database. And this application view is showing us the average rating for our product. So in the first line, that is our example, which we are concentrating on, we have this DXTR 1000 product. We have 2 ratings stored in the database. The first is, or the one of them is 4, and the other 5 stars. Average is 4.5. So we are concentrating on this column here. So then we have this RUB framework. We are not studying it in full here, but as usual, we have a service consumption. That's maybe our HTTP browser. Then we have this service definition, service binding, which provides our OData service to the web. Then we go through the business objects, business behaviors, which we implemented, and then we are going down to the data model, data definition. And this is here very interesting because our first showcase, the average rating, is calculated in this class, which is binded to the data definition of the C set product M CDS view. This CDS view is a how do you see? Also, it's related to the databases, set rating, set product, which has the relationship or which are related by the product ID. So the product ID is a field in the rating table. And so we have here this relationship product ID, one line, rating table 0 to M lines. So we are concentrating here on our class. So we found our class in our framework, and this class is an OO class, and this one For OO class, we can create unit tests. And that is our case here. So our business unit is a OO class. So that's a ZCLVE average rating class. Yeah, which is defined by interface. This interface has a calculate method, and this calculate method has a logic. So it's our logic class and domain class. And in this method, we are doing 3 steps. First of all, with the products, which is the importing parameter of the calculate method, we are reading the ratings by SS over or through the entity. Then we are selecting from the database the average rating for the founded ratings here. And then we are mapping this founded ratings to the product structure, which we are exporting or setting equals to the changing table so that we return the changed values. So most important in this ABAP framework is how to mock these entities, or how are the relations through the entity here, read entity, and here we have this read entity, and the entity here is our data definition, and the data definition is defined like this. And here you see the relation in line 20, this relation, this average rating, which is related to the OO class, which is implemented here. So that's the relationship in our model. That's a CDS view or data definition. Here we define our class, and this class we can implement. And this class we can test. So how we do this test in legacy code? Legacy code is just existing code. So we have this code, we have this method. And here we can use TAD, test after development. If you are knowing TDD, there's a cycle, which at first step, we have this sync step. We are thinking about our solution. Then we are creating a red test. Then we implementing our productive coding to make it green. And with this green test as backup, we have the possibility to change our code as often as we like to make our code better and cleaner. In this test after development cycle, we have to skip this red test because our coding is existing. We want to write a green test. And this is mostly very problematic. That could be a problem because if we have no red test, there's no chance to find out if our test case is working fine or not. So at first you make it red, then you make it green. Okay, you know you have changed the coding so that your behavior changed in the right way. So if you skip this red test, then maybe we do not have 100% clarity if our test is doing the right thing. So is the whole logic covered? Maybe, maybe not. So, but we do not focus on it here. And the refactoring step is super powerful because we can over and over change our coding so that we can make it cleaner, better readable. And this circle we are playing through right now. So with our problem, we have this average rating, our class, which is existing, our test cycle, where to start. We have to create, we can start with a green test for our existing business logic, including the DBSS. So we are not mocking in the very first step. We are working our logic, which is assessing the DBSS. And we are calculating an average for our product DXTR1000, which should be 4.5, because the data sets in the data table are 4 and 5. Here we see. So this sentence are stored. Line 1 is 4. Last line is 5. So if we are calculating the average is 4.5. So with this in mind, we are creating our first unit test, and for this we need the unit test framework. So it's when you are creating a test class and you are executing the test class, the framework which we are run through is always the same. So in the very beginning, we have this class setup, static class, which is executed. So here we can include some logic. Then for each test method we are implementing, we have a setup and a tear down method, which are executed for each test method. And then in the very end, we have this class tear down method. So we are starting here. This method is called, then our test method with the setup and tear down method. And in the last step, class tear down. And then the test run is finished. This in mind, we are creating our green test. So we are creating a test class. The class, local test class for testing. We are defining or declaring a cut as a component under test. It's our productive class. Reference to interface or our productive class. In the first step, we are creating this setup method and our first test method. So input data for product TXTR1000, when calculate average rating, then should be calculated correctly, super name. And what are we calculating? So it's a lot of coding here. That's a test class. And in the very bottom, we are expecting some values. So it's very common to create this unit test and compare your results in the end. So we are comparing here with this assert equals method and an expected value, which we are defining in our method here. So we are expecting table entry product ID DXT1000, which our average rating 4.5. That's our expected value. And our calculated data, we are calculating here in this cut minus calculate method with some importing data and the changing table. So, and where to get this data? We are looking maybe in the debugger to get the input in and output data to create such a unit test. And if we are executing the unit test, then it's green. So for us, we are executing our calculate, our productive method with an importing parameter products and the calculated data. And when we are executing it, we have this 4.5 average rating. So, and this is for our first test. So we tested our productive coding. It's running fine. Our DBSS is running fine. And that's a first test for our CDS view. That one is working correctly. So green was the first step. We have this test method. So and now it's magic time. So we have this test method as backup. And we can refactor our coding. So it's our productive method here. And we can extract our logic in a method, in a functional method, so that we clean up our productive coding. That's our second clean code principle, extract function methods. So here is our importing parameters, and we are returning parameter, and here we have our mapping, results. And here we are mapping our average rating, and we do it in a different way than before. Before we have this read table, and here we are using this inline ETAB assess. So that is our second solution of this map problem. And maybe you can think about a third one, because here's something missing. If we are using this ETAB internal or the inline ETAB assess, then if there's no entry in the table for our product ID, what is happening? Try cache. Yeah, that's maybe our third solution. We will come back to it later. So that is our refactoring step. So it's a lot of coding. So it just, we created a green unit test. And now we have the opportunity to refactor our coding. And here we are using extract function method to clean up our main method. So, and that is where the principle is information hiding. So we make our coding more readable for the reader in the very beginning. So we are hiding information behind this method call, so that maybe the reader is not so overwhelmed when he is coming first into the method and then he has not 100 lines, 1000 lines of coding. So maybe it's just 20 lines of coding and the main informations are hidden behind method calls. Information hiding. So on the best of three, we have already two solutions. The third one I will show you later. So, and that is the method declaration with type declaration. So I pop it up in the data as a class definition, so that we have not too much coding here in the header of the method. So the most important, we change our coding. The test file, the test case is still green. So we did not destroy anything. That's super powerful and good to know. Next step. So the step is the same, extract function method. We can clean up the rest. Here our original method calculate is now much more shorter, because we have here our read average rating for products extracted in another method. Okay. Refactoring step, still green, still fine, but our coding is looking kind of different. And for me, much more readable than before. So, and our last most important step here in the RAP framework, we are mocking our entity. So here we are working with a read entity, but still with DB assess. If we are transporting this unit test to the integration layer, so next system, database is different. What will happen to the unit test?
Wrong result. Or other results.
Other results, or maybe it's red then, because or like this, yeah. Also, system setting is fine, but the database is different, so it will result maybe in red, because the data is, we have still this dependency on the DB data, which we do not want to have in unit tests. So in the RAP framework, SAP is helping us. So shear for SAP, yeah. So we have standard classes to mock these entity assesses. For the CDS ones, is CDS test environment standard class CL CDS test environment. So for our read operation, is this sufficient? You wrote a blog of it about it. So, and for COD operations, we maybe are using another one, SQL test environment. Have this in mind. So, but we are concentrating here on read operations. So the CDL test environment class is for us here enough. So refactoring step mocking entity assess. Now have in mind our test framework. So we have this additional methods class setup and class tear down and tear down. So these ones are called once in the beginning and once in the end. These ones are called every time before our test methods. And we have declared here our CDS test environment, type ref of to interface, and our ratings, standard table of our rating table. So, and then we can, in the class setup, we are initiating our CDS test environment object. And here is the most important thing is for which entity. Here it's rating M and dependency list on table set rating. It's a table type. And our ratings that are those similar to the database entries. We have this rating UUID, which is our key, but it's 16 letters. Here I just use one. Then our product, the XT1000, and our 4 and 5. Creating the instance in the class setup, destroying it in the class tear down. So in our setup method, we clear our test doubles. That's very important. And we are inserting our test data to the CDS test environment instance. And that are our ratings here. So here are the ratings which we are putting in our test environment object instance. And that is the mock scenario in our case here. That is sufficient. Our test method, we did not change. We run it again, and it's still green. So still the same result, 4.5, but without this DB dependency because we created a mock object. Okay, now most important thing is, I know how to create this CDS test environment, but for which entity and which dependency. So, and here you can go through the whole framework to come from this read entity down to our table set rating. So that is why we are having here the set rating table. That's our dependency on the database. And we are going here this way from product M, our entity product M, down to our product entity set rating M. And that is why we are mocking here rating M. So I will publish it in a GitHub and the slides as well. So if you are interested to understand this relationship, then you can have a look in the data model yourself. So that's the most tricky part here. You know how to mock it, but you have to know which data you want to mock that your test case is running. But it's also a very deep dive. So if you are creating this unit test, you have to understand this framework. You are automatically confront yourself with all the things you once developed or your colleagues developed. So it's a deep dive. So refactoring is fun and super learning tool. The power of 3. You already told me before. So this was our second solution. The average rating equals diddle. And we have to adapt it or change it that we have no short term if there's no entry in the ETAB. So maybe one expression could be this value one with hashtag and then the optional parameter, which tells us or allows us that there's no entry in the ETAB. So if there's no entry, then average rating is 0, and it keeps running. There's no shutdown. Power of 3. So the second showcase is kind of similar. Have a look on the clock, 10 minutes left. Yeah, we have a slightly different technical dependency or construct. So that's a view on our rating. So there's a possibility to input a rating for a product in a screen. And there's a check on the rating field. So, and if the rating is not between 0 and 5, then we get this error message. That's our showcase here. So, and we are not going very deep into it. So, but here's the relationship. We have to know where to mock or unit test our OO class, and our OO class is here in the business behavior, defined in the business behavior. And it's the abstract class. It's called ZBP iProduct. So before we were here, now we are here. Different class, but it's an OO class, which we can unit test. That's cool. That's our OO class. So we have not go through all of it, but here's a relationship to our OO class. That is the data definition, or behavior definition. Here's our relation to our OO class. And here's our check. It's not okay here, but here's the check rating method, which is called to check the rating in the screen. So this OO class is a class definition, public, abstract, final for behavior of and the logic is not implemented in this class. It's implemented in a local class, LHC rating. Yeah, definition inheriting from, but it's an abstract class. And that is kind of tricky in the very first moment, because this abstract class we cannot call from our local test class without befriending it to our abstract class. So we have here this addition class, local test class, definition deferred for testing, and befriending this local test class to our abstract class. And now we have access to this class in our local test class, and we can unit test it. That's the only difference to the first example. So we are not going through it in detail. Now we have to think about our first test method. Oh, this is the behavior class. Here our definition, check email. That's the coding for or the implementation for the check rating method. Here we can create a test for rating 5. So that's going through. That's our first test case. We are creating it. It's green. Then we have the possibility to refactor. So extract final functional method again. The same principle. Different class. Still green. Very important. Now we can refactor mocking entity assess. Sorry, it's still the same. So we're mocking the entity assess. Instead of assess to the database, we are creating a mock entity, mock instance here. Still green, so test is fine. Then we can create a second test for rating 6, which will end in a message, so that assert not initial failed and reported are not initial here. And this test case, we can go further. We can check the values in this output parameters. So you see, you can go through the cycle over and over again to fine-tune your tool, your coding over and over again. And the more cycles you're going through, the deeper is your understanding and the better becomes your code. Of course, you are spending more time with it. Huh? So that's all. Oof, huh? A lot. So what we learned is we saw the unit test framework in business object logic. Once we assess or we created unit tests via the data definition because the OO class was related to the data definition. The second case was OO class related to the behavior definition. We used mock entity assess by SAP standard classes. Very important in RAP framework. And we saw the two refactoring techniques, extract functional method, information hiding, and the power of 3. And last but not least, we were confronted to an approach, the TAD, which is similar to the TDD cycle. So it's maybe an approach you can use to refactor your coding and make it cleaner. So what is there still to discover? You can try it on your own because I published the repo. You can download the repo and have a look in the commit history. There's all the steps I presented here. So that are my commits I made in the repo. Here's a link, QR code to the repo. If you are interested in the solutions. You can use this approach for COD entity assessors. So we concentrate on the read operation. So there are COD operations. There's a showcase from SAP, which is valuable. You can search for unit tests in the systems. SAP is doing unit tests. Yeah, that's cool. You can search for the new S-Flight model in the cloud system. It's DMO travel. And look there for behavior definition, and then there you find unit tests. And as well, there's a documentation from SAP in the ABAP subsamples where you can have a look for unit tests itself. So, and I highly invite you to work with me to update the GitHub repo. So I worked on the repo myself so far, but there are a lot of methods we can unit test. And if you are interested to learn something and maybe dive deeper into this approach, then you can direct message me via LinkedIn or contact me here, read to me, hey Martin, I'm interested. Then we can do it together. And yeah, I'm not so helpless on my own. So, okay, that's all. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for working in your skills over and over again. So that you're showing here up is a sign for me that you're willing to learn and go ahead in SAP field. That's a high applause for you. Yeah, thank you, ABAP Conf, for having me for this opportunity. And thank you, Espresso Tutorials and SAP for the breakfast and for the lunch. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So, some minutes left. Question to the audience. Any questions so far?
So I must admit that I never used unit test. I've seen some in the coding, but what would you recommend? When is it worth to work with unit tests?
Always.
Ah.
It's always. So in my opinion and my experience, so I'm doing this stuff over 7 years. So I enjoy coaching with Dami and Christian. Now I'm working with them together, but I go through all the coaching and doing all the TDD stuff over and over again. So it's in the very first beginning, you have to switch your mindset, test first. But right now I increase my productivity by 50%, I think. So for me, there's no unit test, or there is a unit test, it's just unit test. So, and I just can highly recommend to learn TDD because it makes life and coding life and life in general much more easy. So, yeah.
Some other questions? Nope. Then thank you very much for your presentation, for your time. So then we have a 6-minute break